January 17, 1920. At midnight, America went dry. The 18th Amendment made alcohol illegal across the entire United States. It was called the Noble Experiment, a moral crusade to save America from the evils of drink. But what actually happened? Organized crime exploded, murder rates skyrocketed, corruption infected every level of government, and Americans drank more than ever before. This is the story of Prohibition, America's greatest failed experiment. But before we dive into this incredible story, if you love history and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. And if you enjoy this video, smash that like button. It really helps us bring you more amazing historical content. Now, let's go back to 1920. To understand Prohibition, we need to go back further. The temperance movement had been building for decades. In the 1800s, America had a serious drinking problem. The average American consumed 7 gallons of pure alcohol per year. That's triple what we drink today. Men spent their wages at saloons while families starved. Domestic violence linked to alcohol was epidemic. Women led the fight against alcohol. Carrie Nation became famous for walking into saloons with a hatchet and smashing bottles and barrels. She was arrested over 30 times, but became a hero to the temperance movement. The Women's Christian Temperance Union and the Anti-Saloon League organized millions of Americans. They argued alcohol destroyed families, caused poverty, and led to crime and sin. They had a point, but their solution would create far worse problems. World War I gave them the final push they needed. German immigrants ran many breweries. Anti-German sentiment during the war made it easy to paint beer as unpatriotic. Grain needed for brewing should feed soldiers, they argued. By 1919, they had the votes. The 18th Amendment passed. The Volstead Act defined the rules. Any beverage with more than 0.5% alcohol was illegal to manufacture, sell, or transport. On January 17, 1920, Prohibition began. Supporters celebrated. They believed crime would disappear, prisons would empty, and America would enter a golden age of morality and prosperity. They were catastrophically wrong. Didn't stop Americans from drinking. It just made drinking illegal. And where there's illegal demand, criminals provide illegal supply. Enter the gangsters. Before Prohibition, organized crime existed but was small scale. Prohibition transformed it into a billion-dollar industry literally overnight. Al Capone became the most famous gangster in American history. He controlled the illegal alcohol trade in Chicago, making over $100 million per year. That's over $1.5 billion in today's money. Capone didn't hide. He lived openly in luxury. He wore custom suits, ate at the finest restaurants, attended baseball games, and gave to charity. The public loved him. He was a celebrity. When asked about his business, Capone famously said, "I'm just a businessman, giving the people what they want." And people wanted alcohol, desperately. Capone's business was violence. He eliminated competitors ruthlessly. The most infamous example was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, February 14, 1929. 7 members of a rival gang were lined up against a wall in a Chicago garage and machine-gunned to death. Capone ordered it from his winter home in Florida, establishing an alibi. The massacre shocked America. This wasn't romantic gangster mythology. This was industrial-scale murder on American streets. Capone wasn't alone. Lucky Luciano in New York, Bugs Moran in Chicago, Dutch Schultz, Meyer Lansky, these names became legendary. Prohibition created an entire criminal empire. They established distribution networks, bribed police and politicians, built illegal breweries and distilleries, smuggled alcohol from Canada and the Caribbean,
created Speakeasies, illegal bars hidden behind secret doors.
While gangsters fought for control of supply, average Americans found creative ways to drink. Speakeasies became the heart of the Roaring Twenties. These illegal bars operated in basements, behind bookstores, in disguised locations throughout cities. You needed a password to enter. Speakeasy came from speaking quietly about them so police wouldn't hear. By some estimates, New York City alone had over 30,000 speakeasies during Prohibition, more drinking establishments than before it was illegal. Women's behavior changed dramatically. Before Prohibition, respectable women didn't drink in public. Now, flappers drank, smoked, wore short dresses, cut their hair, and challenged every social convention. Ironically, Prohibition, pushed by women's groups to protect women, actually liberated women socially. Homebrewing exploded. Bathtub gin became common. The government actually required industrial alcohol to be poisoned with toxic chemicals so people couldn't drink it. But people tried anyway. Thousands died from poisoned alcohol. The government essentially killed its own citizens to enforce Prohibition. Enforcing Prohibition was nearly impossible. The government employed Prohibition agents, but there were never enough. At peak, only around 3,000 agents tried to police a nation of over 100 million people. And many agents were corrupt. Gangsters had unlimited money for bribes. Agents made maybe $2,000 a year. Capone could offer them tens of thousands. Many took the money. Eli Ness became famous as one of the few incorruptible agents. His team, called the Untouchables, refused bribes and relentlessly pursued Capone. But even Ness couldn't stop Prohibition's failure. He could arrest individual gangsters, but the system itself was broken. Politicians at every level were on the take. Mayors, judges, police chiefs. Entire city governments were controlled by gangsters. Chicago's mayor, Big Bill Thompson, was widely known to be in Capone's pocket. When asked about Prohibition enforcement, he joked that he was wetter than the Atlantic Ocean. The courts were overwhelmed. Prohibition cases made up over 60% of all federal court cases. The legal system couldn't handle the volume. Juries often refused to convict. Average Americans didn't see drinking as a real crime. Jury nullification became common. Even when evidence was clear, juries would vote not guilty because they disagreed with the law. As Prohibition continued, violence escalated. Gangsters fought over territory. Bombings, drive-by shootings, assassinations became routine in major cities. The murder rate in America increased dramatically during Prohibition. In cities like Chicago, gang-related murders occurred almost daily. Innocent people died in crossfire: children, shopkeepers, people who had nothing to do with the alcohol trade. Prohibition created a war zone in American cities. The weapons escalated too. Thompson's submachine guns, the famous Tommy guns, became the gangster weapon of choice. These were military weapons designed for World War I trench warfare, now used on American streets. Law enforcement was outgunned. Police had pistols and shotguns. Gangsters had automatic weapons and unlimited ammunition. In firefights, criminals had the advantage. This led to police militarization. Departments acquired their own automatic weapons and armored vehicles. The arms race between criminals and police began during Prohibition and never stopped.
Prohibition had massive economic consequences, both intended and unintended. The government lost enormous tax revenue. Before Prohibition, alcohol taxes provided nearly 30% of federal revenue. That disappeared overnight. During the Great Depression, that missing money became critical. Meanwhile, criminals made billions tax-free. Capone's organization alone was worth hundreds of millions. That money went into criminal enterprises instead of public services. Legal industries collapsed. Breweries shut down. Thousands lost jobs. Wineries destroyed their vines. Entire economic sectors disappeared. But new industries emerged. Soft drink companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi exploded in growth. Movie theaters became popular alternatives to saloons. The entertainment industry boomed as people sought legal recreation. Ironically, some of the biggest winners from Prohibition were companies that thrived because alcohol was illegal. By the early 1930s, even supporters admitted Prohibition was failing. The Great Depression made repeal inevitable. The government desperately needed tax revenue. Legal alcohol could provide it. Jobs in breweries and distilleries could help unemployment. But the final push came from a surprising source: wealthy Americans. The Rockefellers and DuPonts, who had supported Prohibition, now supported repeal. Why? Taxes. With alcohol legal again, the government could tax it instead of taxing their wealth. Cynical, but effective. Franklin Roosevelt ran for president in 1932, promising to end Prohibition. He won in a landslide. December 5, 1933, the 21st Amendment was ratified. Prohibition ended after 13 years, 10 months, and 19 days. It remains the only constitutional amendment ever repealed. People celebrated in the streets. Liquor stores opened immediately. Breweries that had survived by making near beer began producing real beer again. But Prohibition's legacy didn't end with repeal. The organized crime empires built during Prohibition didn't disappear. Gangsters moved into other illegal industries: gambling, prostitution, drugs, labor racketeering. The Mafia that dominated American crime for decades was built on Prohibition money. So what did America learn from Prohibition? First, you can't legislate morality. Making something illegal doesn't make it go away, it just creates black markets. Second, enforcement matters. Laws without effective, honest enforcement create contempt for all laws. Third, unintended consequences can be worse than the original problem. Prohibition aimed to reduce crime, but created the biggest crime wave in American history. These lessons remain relevant today. The war on drugs follows similar patterns. Criminalization creates massive illegal markets. Cartels become powerful. Enforcement is inconsistent and often corrupt. Prisons overflow. Violence escalates. Some argue we're repeating Prohibition's mistakes. Others say drugs and alcohol are different. The debate continues. Prohibition also changed American culture permanently. Cocktail culture was born in speakeasies. Jazz went mainstream. Women's social freedom expanded. Federal law enforcement grew powerful. Organized crime became entrenched. For better and worse, Prohibition shaped modern America. Prohibition was called the noble experiment. The idea was noble: reduce alcohol's harm to families and society. But the execution was catastrophic. It created organized crime empires, corrupted government at every level, killed thousands from poisoned alcohol and gang violence, cost billions in lost revenue, and completely failed to stop Americans from drinking. When the law and the people are in fundamental conflict, the law will lose. That's the ultimate lesson of Prohibition, America's greatest failed experiment. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Share this video with anyone who loves history. And let me know in the comments, do you think we've learned from Prohibition, or are we repeating the same mistakes? I'll see you in the next video.